to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Andrew.
I'm Jesi.
Leah.
Ari.
And I'm Josh. And today we have a new person on our panel. Leah, welcome to our Gladiator panel.
Yay, welcome.
Thank you.
And Leah is in a relationship with somebody on the panel.
Is it
You.
I was going to say, is it me?
We got a Last Supper here.
Yeah.
I would think that if my imaginary girlfriend was on the panel, I would want her sitting
Oh,
next
so you're a
to me.
Manti Teo now.
I hope not. But alrighty then, we're going to be going over a children's book today because that is what the majority of people from the Literary Gladiators group wanted to go over. And the children's book we're going to be going over is The Lorax by Dr. Seuss.
And he says with disgust. Because he doesn't like Dr. Seuss. Sean!
Alrighty, Ari, you have the discussion starter
I do
for?
have a very simple and but very extremely good topic to start us off with for this book. And as you know, with the Lorax, you have the Onceler, and he is basically takes all the stuff from the forest, and he just uses it for his own needs, basically. But I think my question is, do you guys think that the Onceler, or anyone who could do something that the Onceler has done, be redeemable as in the end of the book?
I think the first thing you got to take into account is, can anybody be...
Yeah, that's basically
be
what
redeemable.
do you guys think about that?
Because the Onceler represents anybody that does anything in order to make a profit. Because I feel that I think that after reading the Lorax, you have to feel or for at least a moment, you feel a sense of distaste for the capitalist ways, because of the fact that you're taking down the trees and the resources that people can be using for survival just for the sake of profit. But it's not saying that it's not. I don't know. Dr. Seuss, his political views were a bit different, but it's definitely not saying that socialism and communism are the way to go, because most people that practice those things will they'll preach that to their followers, but yet they'll have $1 million mansions on the river.
Can I, just to kind of play a sort of devil's advocate here, because, I mean, I don't agree with, doing whatever for profit, but if you think, and he destroyed homes for, the animals and the creatures of the forest, which is terrible.
Yeah.
But just kind of, something that I also thought about, just, again, as a kind of devil's advocate position, when you live in, for example, a country where money makes the world go round, you need that profit in order to survive yourself. So, I mean, are we really, I'm trying to think of how to word it. Is he really that much at fault? Yes, he is doing it for profit, but he's also, profit is his survival.
Well, I feel that there could have been other ways without harming the animals and nature and everything, and making the world in general worse. I think he could have gotten profit by earning it and actually doing something that is beneficial. Now, the argument to my point could probably be that a lot of jobs in the world are poisonous or bad for the environment anyway, but there's I personally think there's a difference between indirectly affecting the environment, which could be changed if changed properly, than actually going out and cutting down trees.
But
well, somebody has to go out and cut down the trees.
Yeah.
So,
I
while
agree
this
with
person
that.
is indirectly doing it, then there's that middle person who is directly doing it. So are we only blaming the middle person?
And
or
the
are we
thing
also
is,
blaming...
let's say you have let's say you have a lumberjack.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have a lumberjack, you cut down the trees. I mean, most people like the person who cut down the trees might be doing it for money, but like it also has a secondary purpose. If you're just cutting things down for no reason but to sell sweaters, which is not like a food, water, shelter thing.
Needs. So
Yeah,
it's
see,
supposed to
that's
be all in
something-
one.
It's something
not
you
like
wear.
an essential product that you need.
needs
It's like something like kind of like trendy and fanciful that people kind of.
It's an all-in-one device. It's clothing.
Yeah.
It's a cloth.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's a
it's
switch
kind of like a
bag.
novelty. How I saw it, like it wasn't like an essential unit that you
No, it
really
wasn't.
needed.
It wasn't. It was a luxury, and
Yeah.
it would
Right, I
It,
think.
it would be a positive asset, but it's not really a need. The
I
way
think
that.
Yeah.
It's not a need the way that the truffula trees are to the other creatures.
Right, so when you see the depletion of the truffula trees and like the
just
bears losing their home
barrenness.
and fun for something frivolous, it's like, you know, it's at a bad perspective.
I know
It's-
that Leah always says to her dad sometimes, "Is this a want or is this a need?" And if you're looking at it, if you're cutting down trees because you're trying to sell something like a need, that's a want. If you're cutting down trees because you're trying to get lumber for people to live in, that's a need. So if you're going to be
And if you're selling the lumber to people
who can
that's
use
okay
it for
as well.
a proactive way.
Yes.
But if you're just doing it to, like Andrew said, to sell for trendy, to make yourself money, that's selfish and it's a want. So, I mean, I think when it comes to the environment, if you have to do it, you have to do it. If it's for the necessity of the human race or of people you know. But I'm kind of against it if they're doing it for like one person's profit.
And
if it's a want.
And I think one of the best context clues is the words that Dr. Seuss uses. If the word sounds ridiculous, then the idea is ridiculous. For instance,
It actually gets
Yeah,
stuck
that's-
because it
yeah.
gets stuck in your head.
the gluppity glop and the schloppity schlop that comes out, that's the waste that they can't, that is not going to go to good use.
It kind of like it puts
It's
what's the word? It puts importance on the word instead of saying it fell out of the pipe. It would say it gloppity glopped out of the pipe.
That's
That stands out to me.
That's what we dump into our rivers and our bays and our oceans.
And kids are also much more partial to onomatopoeia than adults are, I believe. Anyway.
Dr. Seuss was known for that, though, too. He was known for the use of
Onomatopoeia.
the sounds that came with the words.
And I think, it also, kind of helps kids understand how things work too. Because, a lot of kids, or at least in my experience, a lot of kids nowadays, understand that, the environment, is good. It's something we have to save. Chastity, I took her to the museum and she immediately understood that there's more people on the planet than the planet can provide for. And we're already doing what has happened or is happening in the Lorax. So she already understands that. But I think this book also kind of brings minor attention to how companies work too and how selfish, the people in charge are. When it comes to, okay, yeah, I'm taking these resources. Yeah, people need it. Animals need it to survive. But you know what? I want to make the big bucks because then I can buy a new car. I can buy all these fancy things. And I think, what else is great about this book? It's not just, showing the impact that this company has on the environment, but also how the workings of a business environment kind of work. And I think that's great for the kids.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I definitely would agree with that notion. I think that this was exclusively a book about environmentalism, and the Lorax is the anthropomorphized speaker of nature. He's the speaker of trees. So, in essence, he's the representative of all of nature. Something that really came to mind was the idea of the seesaw effect, is what I call it, where the further we progress as Homo sapiens, the tougher the strain it becomes on the earth and in nature itself. The further I know that a friend and I were talking about how there was some issue with because we were taking a medical resource from nature, it was causing harm to the planet.
Yeah, interesting question to ask all of you.
What's that?
Do you think that the impact of the Lorax would have been different if it was written for an adult audience?
Oh, I like that question.
It's an interesting question
Yeah.
because if it was written for, it would be much differently approached, and it would probably come off more as being, it would be like a Who Moved My Cheese kind of book, where that was in the form of it came off more as a fable, and it cost too much money for what it was worth. But I think that the Lorax in itself, I think that it being targeted to a younger audience was quite impactful because of the simplicity of the message. And I think that
I think these days there's, and this isn't to offend anyone, it's just a fact, is that there's a lot of people who are our age now that never had education.
mm-hmm.
So if they try to read an adult-themed book, they wouldn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also, want to point out too that we, and I know not everybody on the panel read it, but we read something like Soda Politics for this season, and that was, a rather complicated kind of subject of how all the ins and outs of the soda politics actually worked. Whereas the message was simple: hey, if you drink soda, that's unhealthy and it's going to hurt your body. Mm-hmm. Here, I think, what's great about this being, a children's book, it is sending a very simple message. Like, if you hurt the environment, you're going to lose, the animals, you're going to lose the things that, like, you need trees to breathe. You cut down trees, you can't breathe. I mean, even though it is more complicated than that, and as adults we understand that it's more complicated than that, it still gets the general message across to the children, so that way as they grow with that simplistic message, they can understand the more complicated side of it.
I think even worse, we're driving ourselves into extinction.
Yeah, that too.
Because I strongly believe,
That's definitely happening.
I believe more in human extinction than I do in, granted I also believe in the change in the climate, but I feel that it being the end of the world is not, I don't think the world is going to come to an end. I think that humans will become extinct, but the world will be able to replenish itself. It may be better off without the presence of humanity because of human nature being beyond that step beyond survival. Because survival's a basic instinct, but it seems like humanity is a species of control, power.
They go beyond
Yes.
basic survival needs. They,
Mm-hmm.
take what they want, take what they can, and with no regard for consequences. And that's definitely going to be the end of us. Like,
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
I would definitely see that being the case. Alrighty then. Do we have any final thoughts?
It's a very powerful book.
I think as far as children's books go, I would say it is, I would agree, it's definitely one of the more powerful ones. And, I read it when I was a little kid and I didn't realize, the impact of the message that it was, sending out until now rereading it as an adult, going, oh, this is just a Dr. Seuss book. It's like, no, it's so much more than that.
It's kind of like, and I know Josh, I don't think you like this one, but all the places you'll go. Yeah. It's kind of like, it has like a message, and it does have a powerful meaning to it. And I think just as kids, you read it and you're like, this is important, but then when you're an adult and you look back on it, you understand why it's important.
It's a frequent graduation gift.
Yeah, it was. So, yeah.
Well, actually, I was talking about the Lorax in that last.
Other places you'll
For me, when I read the book and watched the movie, for me, I thought it was just like a nice movie. But I mean, I understood what it was trying to talk about, and I know I had a financial class in high school, and that's where I got if it's a need or a want. I try to teach my dad that. And I think this book teaches younger kids, teenagers, and all kinds of adults too, the same consequence as to, like, if you need this or do you want that, like, save what you need for the future, and then if it's a want, just save it to the side.
Yeah,
So more teaches everyone at the same time.
It's
Very
very
nice-
macro.
not just
Very
anime.
reminds me
Yeah.
of first grade
Right.
prompt, where we had to look through magazines and cut and paste needs and wants on each of the pages.
Yeah,
I think I remember doing
that
something
too.
We're only
similar.
supposed
Feels familiar.
We're only supposed to do 2 of each, but I ended up doing 17 of each one.
Wow.
So,
I believe
One
that.
for each year. Yeah. It's cool.
already. How would we rate it on a 0 to 5 star scale? Half stars permitted. Andrew.
I'm gonna give it a 4. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4.
Yeah, I'd probably have to go 4.5. It's got a great message, and it's Dr. Seuss, very kid friendly and understandable, relatable.
I'm gonna say it's a 5 because it sends out a message to every single person in the world, and it's for everyone, I think. So I give it a 5.
I'd give it like a 4, maybe a 3.5, somewhere in there. I feel like it is a powerful message. I think it could have been written a little bit differently, still to make it pertinent to kids, but I think the message is clear, and that's what's important. So I'd give it a 3.5.
You didn't think it was kid friendly?
I think it was kid friendly. It's just I think it could have been worded a little bit differently. That's all.
Okay. And I give it 4.5. Because I actually thought that this was a Dr. Seuss book that really stuck with me in the way that
He doesn't even like Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
Which
Dr.
says a
Seuss.
lot, so.
Yeah, I think that the messages and the way that
I'll give it a 4. I'll give it a 4.
the way that things took place.
I'm thinking about it again.
It sounds good. The way that everything took place, it was just so. If you put it alongside current events and everything that's going around.
Yeah, this book might be more important now than when it was written.
Especially since we live in New Jersey too.
Mhm.
But
Weehawken.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But-
a keyword.
But yeah, I think that the message and how it was delivered was clever and also very. I think that it was quite a nice job on Dr. Seuss's behalf. He did a good. I give him something. I give him credit for something there. Alrighty then, if you're interested in checking out the Lorax, here is a copy that my parents' friend actually gave me as a gift at the time I was born, so that was several years ago. But I've had this my entire life, and I still have it in the library, and I picked it up to read it to prepare.
And also, if you haven't seen the Lorax movie, I would strongly suggest seeing it. I know that the internet kind of makes fun of it a little bit because of some of the stuff in it that kind of turned into memes. But seriously, if you have not seen the Lorax movie, don't knock it till you've tried it. It's absolutely wonderful. And despite its status on the internet, it's an absolutely great movie, and I think you guys will all enjoy it.
Alrighty then. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep reading.
Let it grow, let it grow. There's no good on so.